Thank you for joining us today on Extraordinary Life. I am your host, Danielle Desiree, and today I have a treat for you guys. So a while back ago, while I was working with my life coach, I came across a man named Sam Led, and I heard him on a podcast where he was talking about how his life was growing up with ADHD. And I wasn't used to hearing somebody talk about it so honestly and so frank about it and just laying it all out there. And that excited me so much. So I reached out to Sam when he was offering a few programs that he has for other ADHDers. And I wanted to go and do some of them. So I've gotten a chance to work with him. He is a brilliant coach. He's helped me in so many ways with overthinking and hyper-focusing, and a lot of the things that I do being an ADHDer. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce you to Sam Led, who is a wonderful life coach as well as a new author, and we will be talking about his book today, Beyond ADHD, which I love. So welcome, Sam. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and it's an honor to be on your podcast, on your program, Danielle. You know, I think you're a beacon of inspiration to a lot of people, probably a lot of people you don't even know. And I think this is your calling. So I'm so glad that you created this, and it's just an honor to be on here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I wanted us to get in a few things today. One of the first things, if you don't mind going back and talking about a little bit and sharing with us, is what it was like as a child for you growing up with ADHD. I know that for me, it's been very different. I didn't get diagnosed for myself until I was in my early 30s. And a lot of the things that I did as a child, I thought were wrong, or I thought something was wrong with me because it was so hard for me to stop going all the time or sitting still, or, I would have these moments where I wasn't focusing enough, and then I have these moments where I was focusing too much. But, just give me a little bit of background story, what it was like for you growing up.
Yeah. Where do I begin? Well, and actually, I was misdiagnosed probably 5 or 6 times with other assorted DSM-5 labels. Doesn't matter what they are. Call them ham sandwich, peanut butter jelly label, and then learning disabilities, which till this day, which you can read in my book, I still can't describe or explain what they are or what it is, and it's to no fault of my educators or the well-meaning psychologists that really, from their heart, trying to help me. But as much as they felt confused about my neurogymnastics, I was 1,000 times more confused about how my mind worked. But it's kind of like you're thrown into a classroom situation, especially growing up in the 80s, elementary school, late 70s, early 80s, where they really didn't know that much about ADHD and neurobiology when it comes to how mind works with a neurodiverse brain. So it was kind of like they're throwing darts at a board blindfolded, throwing medication and different other techniques and methodologies and how to work with a 6-7-year-old kid with a brain that's developing. And so it's kind of like being thrust into a classroom, and you speak Spanish and everyone else speaks English, and no one understands what I'm saying. That's how it felt for me, if I'm being honest. And it was, I had such strengths and activities that I use my right brain for, like creativity, writing, speaking, imagination, right? I lived in the land of my own imagination and the land of confusion for most of my formative scholastic years. And it led to a lot of sadness and aloneness feelings, and feelings of, man, the whole world doesn't understand me. I don't understand me. I don't understand why I can use my imagination to write great stories because I love writing, but I can't do anything else, especially the left side of my brain. And then the left side of my brain is telling my right side of the brain what to do. And that doesn't make any sense. And it was challenging. And teachers got frustrated with me. My fellow peers got frustrated with me. And I was at a breaking point. I remember in fifth grade, we just moved from Connecticut to South Florida because I'm a Florida boy originally, as you know, even though I've been in California most of my adult life, where my mother came into the principal's office. And of course, the teacher didn't know what to do with me. Not like I was like a behavioral problem, but because my learning style was so different from the other classmates, from my peers. And I just wouldn't, I was argumentative with the teacher. I interrupted her. I told her to F off many times because I didn't agree with like things that impulsivity and reactivity would present themselves to be in a 10-year-old. But I was treated like something was wrong with me versus, oh, wait a second. Let's explore Sam's mind and how he thinks. Let's ask him questions about how he's experiencing the world in the classroom. Never happened. And to the point where my mother came in and just lost it. This is 40 years ago. This is a different time. This is 1984. Okay. So there was no police. there were no police in schools. There was no, none of that. It was the good old days. I mean, there was still corporal punishment, like back in the day, the teacher could hit you. So it's totally different, might as well be a different timeline and lifetime. And my parents, they stuck by me, but I was starting to not stick by myself because I just felt like no one understood me. I didn't understand me. But then I would have moments of calm and clarity when I would be at the beach, or I would go swimming and go surfing when I was little, or, these moments of just presence. And it's when I didn't feel like I was broken, or when I was listening to music, or when I was writing, or I was playing tennis. And that made no sense to me. That made no sense. 10 years old, I'm like, I don't feel stupid or broken when I'm out on the tennis court, or I'm surfing, or I'm on my skateboard, or I'm listening to Chopin at 10 years old. None of this makes any sense, right? Because I can't do math. I don't have good reading comprehension skills. I interrupt the teacher all the time. I'm reactive. I am very sensitive, and yet everyone else, all my peers, are just sailing through school like they don't have any problems. And that was at 10. So if you go, 10 years later, 15 years later, finishing school and grad school, I just think that I began to let life live me and see there are going to be teachers, instructors, romantic partners, employers that are just going to see Sam. And that's really kind of what ended up happening. I started to be seen by people like Danielle, like Rob, like my clients that see me and see how I'm able to point them back to their own well-being. And they've had much worse of an experience with their ADHD mind, much worse, from getting into trouble with the law, to drug abuse, to marital difficulty. I mean, I can go on and on and on. So it was these little snippets, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, these little moments of clarity, of just these winks from the universe, you could suffer, and you're going to suffer, but, some of it's optional. And even through that suffering, if you still let life live you, you're going to see something that you can't describe. Like I just shared with you about when I'm present out and, paddling out and going surfing or playing tennis. So when I look back at my scholastic career from elementary school to high school, because college was I'm on my own, and I was able to choose subjects that I love, like psychology, and creative writing and that kind of in history. But in my formative education it was a minefield. Not to get all dramatic, it was a minefield. I was constantly, trying to, and I would avoid participating in activities. Like in high school, like I was scared of being uncovered for my dysfunctionality with a mind like this that works differently. So I wouldn't try for the tennis team, right? Or football or whatever. Because I felt that rejection so intensely that it didn't seem worth it to me because of my programming. That I remember, like when I did something stupid or I got rejected by something, I wasn't able to, I had to hide in the corner somewhere because I wasn't good enough. And I had further confirmation that I wasn't good enough. So why should I even try out? So I became very, very proficient at hiding. Like, and that sucks. That really sucks. So I hope I answered that question. I know it's a long-winded answer.
Yeah, no. I wanted you to give a lot of background and clarity into that. And it's funny, while I was listening to you, I heard some of myself in that too, like when you're talking about at the beach and doing certain things. And, that's how I feel. I have felt that way growing up, but I feel that way even now as an adult.
Me too.
Like if I go too long and I'm not at that ocean, whether it's just walking the ocean, sitting there, listening, or just taking those moments, after a while I can feel it. I can feel it in my body.
Yeah.
I can feel it in my mind. Same thing if I can't go to the ocean, then it's being out in nature with the trees, or it might be doing certain activities, like you said, like writing. I like to write too. Or recently I discovered I like painting and didn't even know I could paint. So it's funny because when I discovered I liked painting, and people were complimenting me, and they're like, "Oh, well, you're really good. And you sure you haven't done this before?" And I was like, "No." But it was never about the outcome of the painting for me. It never is. It's always about the process, because during the process of when I'm painting, it's like everything just goes away, and I'm in that place. And I wanted to take a moment to talk about that place because you're talking about it in your book, and I'm gonna hold it up again.
It's my favorite place.
For Beyond ADHD, but you're talking about pivoting the presence. In the book. And I just wanted you to touch on that for a little bit, and why you decided to put that in your book and what that means in terms of pivoting the presence.
Well, I think Exhibit A is that we're doing it right now.
Absolutely.
Right? Like,
yeah.
And that's why I always love, having these conversations with you, Danielle, because we go somewhere that can't be, described. But when I was a kid, in those moments when I had not a lot on my thinking, when I was not trying to force something to do something, and I was just letting life live me, like going surfing, like sitting at the desk and just writing. I don't know when to write. I have an idea. I will self-reflect. I'll go inwards. Okay, yeah, maybe I'll talk about rejection sensitive dysphoria, or maybe I'll talk about the Miami Dolphins. I love the Dolphins. I don't know, so it's just doing. It's just doing life, whether it's washing the dishes, and I love washing the dishes too, and I love vacuuming. I know it sounds crazy. I don't have kids, but I have animals, so they make a mess. I love washing my car. When I'm just doing very ordinary stuff and being ordinary, and the ego comes down, right? And when you and I are talking, the personal mind is slowing down, and I notice a sense of just calm and contentment and aliveness that's not coming from the very noisy machinery. It's coming from that space, and none of us. That's that space that a lot of some of the greatest thinkers in the world from the Dalai Lama, Maharishi, in between to Jesus, to call it that space of nothingness. It's where we create, where we fall in love, literally fall in love, where I get to be on an amazing podcast talking to Danielle. It just happens. It's just like, it's like when my partner calls me up, she's like, "Hey, you want to go to Colorado? You want to go whitewater rafting?" I'm like, "Absolutely, let's do it." Randomly.
Yeah.
And it's just letting life live us. That life is living us. Whether you have a neurodiverse brain or peanut butter and jelly brain, whatever brain you kind of have, it doesn't really matter. And it's being okay in the space of uncertainty, not knowing. I know you've heard that before, Danielle, from Michael Neal and from Dick and Benj, right? and all the great teachers. I mean, but it's beautiful. It's not even esoteric. It's common. We all experience it, whether you're rich or poor or young or old. Like, you could just sit with a bagel and cream cheese or whatever, and just all of a sudden you just drop in to that space. And I kept doing that over the years especially when I wrote my master's thesis, which was really, really boring. But I just love the act of sitting at my computer and sipping on tea or coffee, right? Pretending I'm Woodward and Bernstein, like the computer. Well, back then we had word processors. We didn't have, I'm aging myself. But like, it's not about the end result. It's about and I know this is a cliche, it's about the journey of just letting life live us. It's like my niece and nephew were in town visiting, and they're little kids. They're 7 and 10, and they're doing little kid stuff. And sometimes when I'm in a low mood, they drive me crazy. But when I drop out of that low mood, I pivot to presence, and they're the two best human beings on the planet. So I know that's not when my clarity of mind gets a little distorted, I know it's not anything I need to like worry about, because I know that I'm going to get present. It might take a little while, and I don't need to pay attention to it. I can still be kind of cranky and be with and having all this talk about how much of a pain in the butt they are. But I know that's going to pass. And I know that I'm going to pivot to presence when I trust that I will. And that's all about trusting and understanding that that's how it works. It's always been that way. It always will be that way. It will always work for us that way from today until the day, we die. I mean, and that's always how it's always been. Always.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you were bringing up the kids, because you can't see them, y'all, but my wonderful tech team that's behind an extraordinary life. So before we started this episode, one of them was saying we had a few kids in here, and they were just talking amongst each other and just being so innocent. And like you said, Sam, in the moment and just not worried about anything. And I remember, one of the people off my tech team was just like, isn't that great? Isn't that great how they are? Wouldn't it be great as an adult if we were like kids? And I was like, yeah, well, I'm on a mission, because we all need to be like the kids. They got it. They know how to do that. Whereas
they see it.
Right. We cling to control so much and fear the unknown so much when we don't need to. Whereas the kids, they trust so much easier than we do. So thank you for sharing.
They have less miles on the engine, on the odometer than we do. And I think kids are enlightened every day, not because they're doing anything special, not because they're kids. It's because of the amount of conditioning that they have and the amount of stories they have up in their head. Fortunately and unfortunately, because it is a double-edged sword, the stories multiply considerably in our head as we get older. And the biggest challenge for me is a mind that links up to thoughts so quickly. The machinery does, not Sam, but the machinery, my neuromachinery does. The biggest relief for Sam as an ADHD with a mind that works differently, there's nothing wrong with Sam's mind, it's just that's how his mind works, is not allowing myself to link up so deeply to my thoughts when they are not serving my greater purpose. Because and again, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but no two ADHDers are alike. ADHDers are as differing and as unique as the stars in the sky. I know that's a little pithy, but it's true. When we see that the less I link up with thoughts that are overwhelming and unhelpful and are not serving my greater good, I don't need to do anything about those thoughts, those impulsive thoughts, those intrusive thoughts. I don't need to link up with them. It's like, and once I see that thoughts are not alive, thoughts are dead. They're like ghosts, or like apparitions. They're moving, like they're not alive. Like they don't have a heartbeat. Ghosts don't either, but thoughts don't have a heartbeat. Like that was so like, it was just a weight off my chest when I finally learned that, like, it's not the sum total of me. It never has been the sum total of me. It never will be the sum total of me. And I don't need to do anything about that, because the greatest thing about being human is that, I am the manager of my thought factory, even though I didn't build the thought factory. Right?
Yeah.
And ADHDers get caught up in that really easily. We hyper focus on a thought, and then a feeling attached to that thought, which creates an experience, and then we go with it because it's so intensely heavy or difficult, or it so intensely feels good. Right? Dopamine, cortisol, dopamine, noradrenaline. When we say no to both of them, or decide which one we want to choose, that we have agency over, it's kind of cool, because that's how the system's built. That's how we are built. That's how we all have been built from the beginning. We just are innocently misusing the equipment, whether you have a neurodiverse mind or not. And I see that in my niece and nephew all the time. And my niece, she's been having some challenges. She's in fifth grade. I mean, like she's barely 10. And they're like, the teachers are talking about her, not in a bad way, but just like the way they share their experiences about her and their so-called behavior problems. It's really weird. Like, she's 10. She's 10. Right?
Yeah.
And I know that she's going to see her own divinity within her. I know she's going to see her own divinity. I know she's going to see, like, that her thinking is not the sum total of our experience.
Absolutely.
It can't be, though. But it can't be. It can't be. And for me, that was my come to Jesus moment in a good way, or my holy moment. Just like a lot of folks have when they've struggled with learning challenges, and they start to see, like, oh, it's not really made up of anything that I need to really grab onto sometimes. That's cool. Because they're so brilliantly built. We're so brilliantly engineered. We're just so cool. Like, I look at my niece and nephew, I'm amazed by them. They're amazing. Like, and when I see them as these loving, kind, kids that are just full of joy, but I could never see it that way when I'm up here in this ADHD house of horrors, I call it. Impossible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've taken that phrase from you, Because, you say that all the time, and I take that phrase, and I love that phrase, the ADHD house of horrors. But it's funny, but it also helps me to realize that the house of horrors isn't real. You know how when you go to your favorite amusement park, and if you wanted to go to the haunted house, and you went in the haunted house with your friends, and it would scare the life out of you and everything, and it would feel so real while you were going through it. But somewhere in the back of your mind, you knew it's not real. You know, it's not real. Yeah, it might have scared the living daylight out of you, but it's not real. You settle real. And you realize and that.
Yeah. I mean, I this morning, I never talk about I try to stay away from politics, what's going on in the world. And it's just, and I put my hyper-focusing ADHD mind to the test because historically in the past, when someone, I'm a naturally argumentative person in the past, my ego would always get the best of me, especially when it came to world international politics. My master's degree is in public policy, international conflict resolution. So I'm like, hyper-focusing on that. And this morning, my partner and I, her mom was on the phone. We were talking about the two different candidates. I'm not going to name names. I don't want to go there. Doesn't matter. And I noticed I could feel it was right in my solar plexus, that feeling where I needed to jump in and say something. Right. And then I could feel my mind. And this self-awareness is so important for ADHDers. Hyper-focusing on like, no, she's wrong. No, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking. I could feel that happening. That having to be reactive, like you don't outgrow any of that, but it's so cool to watch it happen. It's like, brain, what are you doing, brain? Oh, brain, I know you're trying to protect me. Oh, brain, I know you're trying to do whatever you're doing, silly brain. I stopped myself. It's like you bite your tongue. Like I bit my tongue there because had nothing to do with what they were talking about. Had nothing to do with candidates they were talking about. Or what political stance they were sharing or whatever. It's just that mind is it's kind of like a Nikon camera with a zoom lens. The auto zoom, zoom in, zoom out. It's always zooming in. Like, I mean, I could sit here and this water bottle and if I allow my brain to do it, I could sit here for the next hour just zooming into all the different writing on here. It's like the Dr. Bronner soap. You ever see the Dr. Bronner soap? It's just a machine that's just working differently. But when you see the zooming in is a moment to just see like the brain's just doing its gymnastics, and it's just, that's it. It's curious, sometimes too curious. It's not a problem. It's not a problem that I need to do something about. Oh, Sam's zooming in too much today. He better watch. No, I can be aware of that, because once I'm aware of it, I drop out. It's like changing. Remember when we had TVs with channels?
Yep.
Okay. I can go from channel 2 to channel 3. Like if I don't like what's on channel 2, I can always change the channel. But we've been programmed, and I'm not trying to poo-poo modern psychology. Because it has its place for some people, and if it works for them, and especially the cognitive behavioral field of psychology when it comes to ADHD, but it's not something that we need to learn a technique to do, right? In fact, it adds more layers to the system that create more complication. I mean, the ADHD machinery is complicated. It's already complicated to begin with. We're just adding more complexity. So for me, it was like, I just noticed it through feeling, because ADHD is like, we're so tuned in. We're so tuned into the universe. We're so tuned into our peers and to the people we love. We're so tuned into just everything around us. It doesn't take that much to drop out of your thinking. It doesn't take too much to see if you're in a low mood, that maybe it's okay to sit with it and not to pay attention to it. It's okay to be in a low mood. And as it is okay to zoom into this water bottle and know that, I know my history, that I can zoom out at any moment without having to do much. Like we've made everything too complicated, and it isn't. As Dick and Benninger says, life is simple. And it's through that simplicity that we don't get wrapped up so much in what our brain's doing. Because the brain loves us, but it's just doing its thing. And we don't have agency over that. We have agency over on what we want to birth into the world in terms of thought. But we don't have control over like the brain. The brain's going to do brain things, and that's it.
Absolutely. There are, before we leave today, there's a couple things I just wanted you to touch on real quick. So
sure.
One of the things, and I say this a lot myself, but I've also heard you say this a lot is, and it's also in the book, which is talking about ADHD superpowers. What does that mean to you, ADHD superpowers?
Wow, that's a chapter.
Yes, it is.
ADHD superpowers are, it's kind of like the metaphor that you probably heard before from other clinicians and coaches. We have like we have an F1 race car of a brain with bicycle brakes, right? But in that space between when we're trying to get a hold of the very quick thinking, overwhelming speed to which we bring in sensory stimulation, some magical things happen in that space, in that split second space between, when we're overloaded with sensory details and information coming at us all at once, because we're not attention deficit, we're just attention different. There's a big difference between, I don't know who, a well-meaning psychologist or researcher came up with that term. Okay, that's my politically correct answer. I have other words for it, but that's but in that space where we are overloaded and all this information is coming at us, even if we have sometimes difficulty organizing all that neural data, sensory data, stimuli coming at us in everyday life, nothing flies by us. Nothing. That's what makes us great intuitives and psychologists and therapists and creative types, because we see nuance and detail in things that most people don't see. And I'm not saying we're better. We got our stuff just like everybody. Most ADHDers have seen some stuff in their life. The good, bad, and the ugly. We've seen some stuff, and I mean, I'm not, listen, if you're a combat vet, like our friend Rob, he's seen some stuff on the physical, in literal war. But we've seen some stuff, not to compare, we're better. No, we've seen some stuff inside and just through daily life, a lot. But we have a tendency to really have compassion for others in such a way, and empathy for others. I would say a lot of ADHDers are amazing empaths, extraordinarily intuitive. I mean, I have a client that I swear he's either clairvoyant and he's like a business guy. Like he makes millions of dollars a year. A total ADHDer. Oh my God. I mean, he can't even. And again, it's a joke because we always joke, but he can't even match his socks up. I mean, he's he's a total. His tie doesn't match his but he's making he's a brilliant businessman, and researcher and amazing person. The other thing is that we are extraordinarily, when it comes to urgent situations in life, right? If I remember. A friend of mine was having breathing problems. We were at a restaurant in Santa Barbara a couple years ago, and I just jumped to it. Not to make my, not for ego to share this, but I gave him the Heimlich and got whatever was stuck in his throat. I jumped to it quickly. So we're quick on the go when it comes to urgency. That's why a lot of the greatest ER doctors, triage nurses, emergency nurses in the world have ADHD. I know one that I follow on Instagram. Her name is ADHD Mama. I can't remember her name. She's called the Neurodivergent Nurse on Instagram. Y'all got to check her out. She's one example. She works as a triage and emergency care nurse. ADHD. No one ever thought she'd finish nursing school. Her teachers told her that this is too much for her and she would better finish nursing school. Guess what? Not only did she finish nursing school, but she finished it like summa cum laude. So that's all I got to say. Drop the mic, right?
Yes. And
Dropping
thank you for
the freaking
sharing
mic.
that. Right.
The other thing is because we have such empathy for people, we're able to be great listeners. Even though people think we can't listen, that's complete baloney. Danielle, I mean, I remember Rob saying to me that, like, he was saying that you were his Elsie, Elsie Spittle. She's one of the best teachers, one of the thought leaders in the principals community. Rob's like, because you listen, you hear, you feel, you're able to see the forest from the trees when it comes to people, and you have that gift. We have selective listening, but
yeah,
that's a whole. And also resilience. The number one, we see our inner resilience. That's the number one quality of an ADHDer, bar none. Danielle, you've shared your own journey with me on my podcast, and I think in my workshop, and the capacity for us to see our inner resilience and get back up again. I would say a lot of combat veterans have ADHD especially during World War II and every major war we've been in, all ADHD. I think that's true. I mean, I can't say for 100% certainty. I mean, I don't know if they've been tested, but the capacity to see our own inner strength is remarkable. It's as intense as all the other quirks and features of our ADHD neuromachinery. So that is probably the most important one too.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
Yeah, I would. And you're right. It is selective listening.
And we make great parents. We forget sometimes to the kids' lunch.
That is very true.
Yeah.
But it's definitely true what you're saying. I mean, my sons tell me all the time they feel like I'm a great listener. And what's so funny is I always thought I was a great listener, but it's not until recently I really learned what listening is. But, that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah. We can definitely do an episode on listening.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But there were a lot of things I wrote down I love about this book, but I wanted to tell you what my favorite quote is that you put in here. You said, fall in love with your unique neurodiverse mind. And you were the first person who ever said to me to fall in love with your mind. Like, it's always been coming from a negative place. Like, you need to change your mind, or you need to fix this, or you need to, your mind, well, that's just how you think. That's just how you are. But it wasn't spoken into a positive light. And when I saw that quote and I thought about it, and I was like, fall in love with your neurodiverse mind. Fall in love with your mind. Every mind is beautiful. Every mind deserves to be loved, whether it's neurodiverse or not. So I just wanted to share that with you, how much that impacted me. And,
thank you.
The book that you wrote, and I'm going to plug it again, Beyond ADHD by Sam Led. It's a book that I will definitely go to time and time again to remind myself that it's okay and fall in love with my neurodiverse mind. Yes. And before I forget...
I do too, by the way. I know, I don't mean to sound all egoic, but I do too. It's like a random... I just pick up and read. If I need a reminder, I just pick up a page and read a random page in the book. Like, George Pransky's new book. It's the Secret of Mental Health. From the Prince. Same thing. I'll just open up a random page and read it and put it back down. Okay, I'm done for now.
Yeah.
I just need a little reminder. Oh, thank you. Or Dr. Amy's book. So Yeah, thank you. It's yeah.
And you're welcome. It's been a treat. Before you go today, I got a couple of requests. One
Yes.
is if you can share what people can find you, so that way they can find you and see all the great things that you're doing for not just ADHDers, but for everyone. So I'm going to let you share all that information.
Thank you. And again, Danielle, it's an honor and a privilege to be on your show. You can reach me. My website is samledconsulting.com. You can also DM me on my Instagram. It's samled1111. I'm on Facebook, samled, and LinkedIn, samled. But probably the best way to reach me is through either Instagram or my website. You just click contact me, and love to hear from you, everybody.
Yes, please, you guys reach out. He does great work. And, lastly,
yes,
going back to childhood and parenting. So looking back, if there's anything that you can share with parents that are raising neurodiverse children, that could help benefit in the support of raising their children, what you feel maybe you didn't get or what you felt like would have supported you, anything. What would you like to share with those parents out there?
That's a great question. I think the biggest one is if you're starting to feel angry and overwhelmed by your child's behavior, that's a call to presence. That your child is not causing your anger, and nothing that your child is doing is causing your anger. It's your thinking at the time and your conditioning and what your brain is telling you that is blaming your child for, even if the child is being a total spoiled brat, whatever the child's doing, it doesn't matter. That's an indication. That's a call to just taking a step back and cool down, and never ever ever think that the child is doing anything because it's not something because they're doing it on purpose. They're just being children. They're just being young adults. They're doing it, and they only, they're doing the best they can with the level of thinking they have in that moment. They're just doing the best they can. They're kids, even if it seems so overwhelming to the parent, and like it's never personal ever. You can't take it personal. It's very easy too, because we are living in our own Netflix movie about how our kids should behave, or how our kids should see the world, or what we're trying to indoctrinate our kids to believe about the world, or about school, or about whatever. Let the kids be kids. Let them get in trouble sometimes. Let them fall down. Let them learn it on their own, but don't take what they're doing personal.
Ooh.
Ever. I don't care what they say. I know that's hard. I get it. But the sooner you see like the level of thinking they have on at that moment, it's just the level of thinking they have on their moment they think is true. Just like we are when we are experiencing whatever behavior problem is coming at us. That's the ultimate kind of test. And you're going to forget sometimes and yell, and you're going to forget sometimes and lose your cookies or lose your shits. I mean, it's going to happen. And that's okay too. Because wherever you are right now, whatever you're doing right now, when it comes to, raising kids, it's a combat sport. It's a contact sport, right?
Yeah.
So that would be my major is well, one, sense of humor. And two, like, don't take it personal. You can't take it personal. You're in the business of raising your children. If you took everything personal in your business life or in your work life personal, you wouldn't have a job right now. Because inner resilience goes both ways with that. Right? As much as your kids' behaviors seem like an attack on you, or that they're spoiled, or that they're acting like so-and-so, and put the words in between that the words that you're having in your head about what you think of your kids in the moment. if it feels too heavy, if it feels too overwhelming, if it feels like you want to throw daggers at your kids, that's a call to presence. I've heard some people say that's a call to prayer, which means like,
yeah,
it's not real. That's not real. And within an hour, your kids are going to be fine and you're going to be fine. So why would you pay attention to the anger and to the judgments you have about your kids in the moment when they're acting out? That's a no-go zone. So that's what I have.
Thank you. And I love that. Yeah. And that's just golden nuggets, not just for neurodiverse children, but
I didn't say it was easy. I'm saying it's just, listen, I don't have kids, you don't need to have kids just to see like the psychological innocence in when your kid acts out, especially an ADHD kid. It's innocent. Don't take it personal. And you're going to forget that it's not personal and you take it personal, and that's okay too. You can't get this wrong, but if you want to suffer less, you can't take it personal.
Yeah. Because
my parents did that with me in 1981 when I was 6 years old, 7 years old. This is way before. This is, a long time ago. And because they saw the light within me, like we see the light within our kids every day, even when they're 50 or they're 30 or they're 15, we all have that light. We all have that well-being within us. All of us. That's our essential nature. You can never take that away. It just gets contaminated and clouded sometimes by our personal thinking. And when we see our personal thinking as it's a mirage. You're gonna suffer less. So same thing goes with neurodiverse kids or neurodiverse kids like me and you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been really rich today. Thank you for joining us all out there today on Extraordinary Life. Until the next episode, blessings to you and yours.